Hi, I'm Gordon from Camera Labs, and this is my review of the Fujifilm Instax Wide 400, an analog instant camera that uses the largest Instax wide film. Launched in June 2024 and costing around £130, see dollar price linked below, it's amazingly the first new Instax wide camera since the Wide 300 a whole 10 years ago. Now, during that time, Fujifilm's made numerous cameras for its mini and square formats, including analog and digital models, but for wide, there's only been a single product, the Link printer from 2021, which still sells for around $130 or pounds, and I've got a review of that along with all the other Instax cameras if you're interested. As such, a new wide camera is big news in the instant photography world, so let's see what Fujifilm has come up with given the decade since the last one. First things first, the wide format is the largest of the three Instax films, producing images measuring 98 by 62mm, on paper that's 108 by 85mm. This makes the actual image itself just over twice the width of Instax Mini, albeit still smaller than the standard 6x4-inch postcard print. As with other Instax prints, there's a white border around the image, and if you keep the thickest strip at the bottom, you'll be framing in the horizontal shape, versus Mini, which I think looks best when framed vertically. Like the other Instax formats, you get 10 prints in a cartridge, with Fujifilm typically selling twin packs that work out about 90 cents or pence per shot, and that's only a little bit more than the Instax Mini format. Like its predecessor, the Wide 400 is an unashamedly chunky camera, comfortably larger than a mini or square version in order to accommodate the larger cartridges and the analog exposure system. On the previous model, the optical viewfinder looked uncomfortably bolted onto the right-hand side as viewed from the front, but now Fujifilm sensibly relocated it to the opposite side of the camera, in the gap above the grip. Beyond this, Fujifilm squared off some details, but the core size and shape remain essentially the same as before. Strangely, for a brand that revels in multiple finishes, the Wide 400 is only available in a single colour, sage green. Contrast this with the black and toffee versions of its predecessor, or the countless pastel variations of the smaller Instax formats. Round the back, you'll see Fujifilm has opted for simplicity, with little more than the viewfinder and two small windows to indicate whether a film is loaded and a counter showing how many shots remain. This means the new camera sadly loses the small LCD display and twin buttons of its predecessor, which allowed you to lighten or darken exposures, as well as selecting the flash mode. In contrast, the Wide 400 becomes fully automatic with no manual control over exposure or the flash, a bit of a disappointing step backwards. A new twisting control opens the main compartment for loading and unloading cartridges and reveals the rear of the lens optics. Again, this is a fully analog camera where light from the lens directly exposes the film in the cartridge, so there's no digital sensor, no screen and no memory. As before, the camera is powered by 4 AA batteries, which fit into the grip side of the camera, and Fujifilm provides a set of alkalines to get you started, which should be good for about 10 packs of film. Sadly though, they've obviously resisted the opportunity to fit a rechargeable lithium-ion pack. The lens is also the same as before, with a twisting mechanism to power up the camera and choose between the two focusing ranges. First from 90cm to 3m, and second from 3m to infinity. Twisting the barrel back again retracts the lens, closes a protective shutter over it, and switches the camera off. As before, Fujifilm supplies a close-up accessory which clips onto the front of the lens and allows you to focus down to 40cm, which in turn lets you get a little bit closer to your subjects or take selfies at arm's length. This accessory includes a small mirror to help you frame selfies, while the viewfinder includes a smaller rectangle and a dotted circle to allow you to more easily frame close-ups. Remember that you'll be using the viewfinder entirely for composition behind the camera, and in my tests you'll generally capture a bit more than it indicates. But I still cringe when unclipping the close-up accessory and fear that the tabs which hold it in place may snap off over time. That said, you may have just lost the accessory by then. For me, it's an unfortunate throwback to the older mini cameras, which also required you to remember to carry around a close-up accessory for selfies. Now, this has long been replaced on those models by an upgraded lens housing, which can be extended a bit further for selfies on the new mini and square cameras, so it's a shame that Fujifilm didn't implement this on their new wide. Maybe it wasn't possible. Moving on, the flash is fully automatic, although unlike the basic minis, it doesn't just blindly fire with every shot. Instead, it only flashes under dim conditions, although it isn't aware of any distance, so it may result in a futile attempt to light up a building or landscape. Plus, anyone who remembers the Wide 300 may still be bitter that there's no manual control over it. In fact, there's only two controls on the Wide 400. The shutter release remains atop the grip, although do beware when handling the camera when it's powered up, as I personally found it easy to accidentally push the button and waste one of those precious prints. Remember, as a simple analog model, a print is going to be used every time you push this button. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the lens housing is a new self-timer control, absent on the previous model. It's actually quite a neat dial with 5 clicky positions that progressively illuminate lights on the body to select 2, 4, 6, 8 or 10-second self-timers. Fujifilm also includes what's grandly described as a camera angle adjustment accessory, which is actually just a pair of small plastic cubes attached to the wrist strap. Look closely though and you'll see that one surface on the cubes is actually sloping, so the idea is that you wedge one of these under the camera grip to angle it upwards a little. A small indent under the grip can help you line it up, but it won't actually clip into place, so it can be a little bit awkward to slide it into place. No matter though, as just pushing one of the blocks under the camera will successfully push it up by a few degrees. This certainly helps frame a self-timed single or group shot with the camera positioned on a table or other flat surface, but I think most of us have managed this for years with any other small object that might be to hand. So, in the absence of any other controls or features, let's wrap up while looking at some shots that I took with the camera around Brighton. The Instax Wide 400 is Fujifilm's first wide camera in 10 years, and like its predecessor is a fully analog model with no digital sensor, screen or memory. As such, it delivers the simplicity of the basic mini and square models, but now with the largest print size in the system, roughly twice as wide as the mini format. Given the decade-long gap between wide cameras, you'd be forgiven for expecting a bit more from the 400, but it's actually become more basic than the previous model, and I'm not just talking about the single colour finish. Sadly, gone are the controls which let you choose the flash mode and whether to brighten or darken an exposure, and that leaves a fully automatic system with no manual overrides. Sure, the new self-timer is a useful addition, but I'd personally prefer some control over the exposure. It's also frustrating to see the Wide 400 hasn't integrated the close-up capability into the lens housing of more recent Instax cameras, and instead still forces you to remember and clip on an easily lost accessory for selfies or shooting from 40cm. I'd also have enjoyed a wide version of the recent Mini 99 with its innovative approach to applying effects in a fully analog system. Or maybe a hybrid version like the Evo with a digital sensor and screen, which lets you choose which images to print, while also doubling as a wireless printer for your phone. But maybe that's just me. Part of the appeal of Instax is the simplicity of some models, and the Wide 400 certainly delivers that experience, with little more to do than to point, shoot, and just wait for the image to fade into view. In most situations, the Wide 400 produced nice looking prints, although like most analog Instax models, it can become overexposed in sunny conditions, even in England. Ultimately, the removal of any exposure or flash control makes it feel like a step backwards, and it's not for me personally. So if I'm after an Instax wide print, I'm going to stick with the wireless printer for around the same money. I certainly feel there is room in the range for a more advanced wide camera, and I hope I don't have to wait another decade for it. But if you love the simplicity of a basic mini camera and just wished it made larger prints, the Wide 400 could be right for you. So would you buy the Instax Wide 400, or has Fujifilm missed an opportunity? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you next time. Oh, and if you like this hoodie, I've also included a link to the shop where I got it in Portland, Maine. Thanks again. Bye bye.